All right, mic check, mic check. All right, guys. So we're here live outside the federal courthouse where today, this is day 5 of the trial, defamation trial of rap superstar Cardi B. I'm joined today with my legal correspondent, Brittany Dobbins, and we're about to give you an update on what occurred today. 1 minute, please.
Hello, everybody.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Brittany Dobbins, attorney Brittany Dobbins. Brittany's been in the courtroom with myself, and she has had an opportunity to watch the case. Let's go right into it. The first witness for the plaintiff today was Dr. Sherry Blake. Can you discuss her testimony?
Yeah, she was the psychologist that treated Cardi B. She began treating her around 2018. She testified today and was flown out to New York to do an assessment on Cardi B because her management had noticed that she was experiencing lots of symptoms of sleeplessness, depression. She was unable to focus. She didn't want to work. So she was going through some things that were very concerning to her management. She basically testified that over the course of time when between the time from when she first met with Cardi B in 2018 to when she met with her again in 2020, she had noticed a significant decline in Cardi B's condition, had mentioned that she noticed that Cardi B was starting to feel suicidal. She recommended a treatment plan for Cardi B. She did a risk assessment, and she really did a really good job of creating an analogy for the jury that it seemed that they were very receptive to, and equated emotional distress as something that people don't really appreciate. So she equated it to an individual being stabbed several times. So she equated each defamatory statement to Cardi B being stabbed but bleeding internally. And it was very visual and very graphic testimony that I think was very impactful for the jury.
Well, would you say that the analogy was powerful because she used the courtroom as an example, as someone coming in the court and getting stabbed, and how someone would immediately render aid to them, and then she went into to talk about that was an external reaction to the injury, but she also pointed out that whenever Tasha K would make a post about Cardi B, it was an internal stab to her.
So to back it up, the analogy was very, very visual. So she did give the example of someone rushing into the courtroom and stabbing somebody, and how everybody would react and rush over to give assistance because they're bleeding externally. You can see the damage. And she was saying a lot of times when you're dealing with emotional distress, the ramifications are not visible. They're not like blood on the outside, but she made the analogy and the comparison that there's still blood, there's still damage. It's just as severe, but it's on the inside and it's not something you can see. And she also made the correlation that because of the severity of that it contributed to Cardi B's condition of feeling very helpless, feeling very depressed, feeling like she wasn't getting assistance for what she was going through.
Before we go any further, let's briefly talk about the doctor's qualifications and how you believe it came across to the jury when she went into qualifications. Can you talk a little bit about qualifications?
Typically whenever, this was expert testimony that the plaintiffs opened with today. So typically whenever you're dealing with an expert, there's a significant amount of time that goes into qualifying them and letting the jury sort of hear their qualifications and what makes them qualified to make the assessments that they did. They spent a significant amount of time doing that today, talking about how the psychologist had been practicing for over 30 years. She had been on several TV stations and had gained several awards for her psychology. Basically letting the jury know that she has been deemed an expert on several platforms and by several individuals throughout her career, which made her credible to speak on the issue. I think there were other things like she had created a treatment plan for hurricane survivor victim. She had done things
Hurricane Harvey.
Hurricane Harvey, that's correct. And she had done several developmental psychology related things. She was very familiar with coping mechanisms, which she testified to that Cardi B's coping mechanisms from 2018 to 2020 during the course of the defamation had severely deteriorated. So she definitely backed up her assessment with her qualifications.
In one part of her testimony, she spoke about traveling to New York City, and I believe it was the London hotel, and she described when she walked in the room how Cardi was. Can you talk about that part?
Yeah, I mean, she wasn't confident about the hotel location, but she did specifically testify to the fact that when Cardi B's management reached out to her, they said that she was experiencing what she would describe as an episode. And when she arrived at the hotel to do an assessment with Cardi B, Cardi was laying in the bed, stretched out across the front. She seemed very lethargic. She expressed that she just didn't want to do anything. She didn't have any interest in anything, and that she just wanted to sleep, and that she had been sleeping for several days at the time that she had seen her.
You as an attorney who have actually litigated defamation cases, how would you measure this particular witness's testimony as it was being conveyed to the jury?
I think her testimony was very effective in the sense that she was able to, again, create the imagery for the jury. I think that, not only do I have a background as an attorney, my mother actually is a psychologist and does this type of testimony for cases. And so there is it's hard sometimes to convey to the jury what emotional distress is like and how the impact is for the individual experiencing at the time, and how it is severe, it is traumatic, it does have sometimes financial, sometimes physical ramifications. And she did a very good job of illustrating how the depression, how the anxiety, how the stress of the whole situation sort of got worse over time, and how it's continuing on till this day.
The doctor also testified that Cardi B didn't want to sue her at first. Do you recall that testimony? Can you talk about that? How she said Cardi didn't want to sue her, she just wanted to stop doing what she was doing?
Yes, there was significant testimony about how Cardi wasn't, she really just wanted the defamation to stop. So she was trying to explore several other options before actually going to a lawsuit. She was trying to take on the burden herself, which actually was a contributing factor to one of the recommendations that the psychologist made. She told her to allow her legal team to sort of take care of it, to not consume herself with it, to sort of reduce the stress that she was experiencing. But, so yeah, definitely. Cardi didn't want to sue. That wasn't the first avenue that she took. She tried to reach out to, the defendant first and have her, take it down or try to reason with her in terms of reducing the stress on her, but the lawsuit was eventually the course of action that had to take place.
Let's talk about the cross-examination of the doctor, and what did you think about the cross-examination, and do you think it had like a impact on the refuting the testimony of the doctor?
I don't think that it refuted the testimony of the doctor. I think that they did attempt to make some significant points, one being that it wasn't mentioned in the summaries that she had done that there was that Cardi B was suicidal. That was significant testimony throughout the trial and during the doctor's testimony that Cardi B was suicidal. But on the rebuttal, Cardi's counsel did a very good job of sort of reeling that back and explaining for the jury that there was a whole risk assessment done on Cardi B, which is something that isn't typically done unless somebody is suicidal. So there was specific documentation related to that, trying to reduce any doubt that might have been caused by what the defense was able to pull out.
So basically, the summary that the defense put up for the jury wasn't everything that was happening with Cardi in totality. There was a supplement to her analysis.
I can't say it was a supplement, but to give you some sort of legalese, they did a good job of letting the jury know that it's circumstantial evidence. They can weigh it however they want, and it's not conclusive one way or the other. It didn't necessarily need to be in the report that Cardi was suicidal. There was other documentation that supports that.
And she left the stand, and the plaintiff rests their case. Let's talk about the next witness.